Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little disassembly for you of this guy. This right here is a Real Steel H6-S1 Liang design. So let's go on ahead and take this guy apart. See what makes it tick on the inside. Looks like it should be pretty straightforward. It looks like a steel frame lock sort of affair. So let me find the right bit here. These are all fairly small torques. Looks like T7, that's going to be T8. Usually it's T8 rather than T7. T7's a little bit weird, and then that means the other one's going to be T6. Oh yeah. Alrighty. Let's take this little guy apart. Start off by popping out the pivot here. Nice and easy, zero Loctite. I want to thank my viewer, Van, for sending this guy along. It's Real Steel is a company that I haven't had a lot of experience with historically, but I'm kind of curious about. I got one from my buddy Ian over at Detent Tools, I believe. No, I'm sorry. I'm making that up entirely. I got a Gonzo from Ian at Detent Tools. I got a Real Steel from my buddy Peter down in Australia. There we go. Sorry, we were jumping a little bit. A little bit of extra torque going on there. And that's always scary because it means that you're starting to strip either your driver or your bit. So there we actually had some Loctite, which is interesting. You can see here there's remnants of your white thread locker or red thread locker. See a little bit of that. That's always ugly. No good at all. And then I am, pardon me, a little bit afraid that this is peened outwards, that this little thing is going to prevent us from doing the rest of the disassembly here. But let's hope not, shall we? Okay. So this part is now disengaged. We now need to disengage this area here, and yeah, it's looking like that might be peened open, such that we cannot actually pop the scale off from the backside here. So I'll go at it from the front. That means I've removed some extra screws here. Oh, cute. Now the spacer is spinning freely. I believe I've just made a very bad bet. I'm actually racing against the clock here, because I have been told that dinner is going to be ready by the loving fiancé in about 20 minutes, and I'm currently 2 minutes and 57 seconds into this install. I figured it's a simple knife. I'll be able to do this quickly, Nick says. But Nick is wrong. So the reason I screwed these guys in is because the screws actually go in the opposite directions. And so by having the screw in there on the one side, we'll be okay. It'll prevent the spacer from spinning freely. Wow, spinning freely. There we go. And now that I've done that, I can take the knife the rest of the way apart here. So, yeah, this is definitely peened on there. You can see it's bigger on the outside there. No good. All right, I'm taking it apart. We see the lock bar stabilizer here, which is held in place with some red Loctite. Pardon me. We see that there's a little cutout right here, which will reduce the weight of that steel liner a little bit. We can see here. But, oh, wow. I'm just a mess this evening. Sorry about that. Anyways, that's neat. But we can see over on this side that we have this is a plastic Delrin washer of some variety or another on the carbon side, and that almost makes sense because metal will chew against the carbon. It's not a big deal. It's not something that actually concerns me, but it is something I can see why they'd make that decision, as well as a cost-cutting measure. So Real Steel is a company that is apparently actually involved with the Boca people, the German company, and so this is their cheapy Chinese wing. Real Steel is. So very, very budget is kind of what defines them. So, good to know. Cleaning up this side. I'm just using some rubbing alcohol here. I'm just all off my game this evening. But that's okay. You don't always need to be on your game. Oh, I see what they're doing here. They've got this plastic Delrin, whatever it is, insert, and then they've got this phosphor bronze washer on the inside of it. So thus every side has a phosphor bronze as well as the Delrin. So by doing that, they're able to get away using a really freaking thin phosphor bronze washer. I'm going to see if I can even show it to you. It's that damn thin. This is a cost-cutting measure, 100%. Now everything starts to make sense. In addition to not wearing against the carbon fiber, which is good, but it's not a huge concern, this allows them to use relatively thick Delrin washers, or plastic, or whatever this is, and then to use these really, really freaking thin phosphor bronze washers so that they get an action that's like phosphor bronze, except it's really cheap because they're not using much of the metal, which is really entertaining to me. Right now I'm just cleaning everything off here. Last thing I need to clean is the the pivot. The stop pin is fine. It's right up here. There we go. Oh, that's impressively cheap right there. Hey, whatever. If they're selling this guy for the right price, okay, I guess, sure. So, there we go. The knife itself seems to be in decent enough shape. There's no rust. There's no problem. I'm going to put a little bit of booze over here on a Q-tip. And I'm going to run that on the inside of this hole. I'm going to run that here. And then I'm going to run that on the inside of the pivot here. And that'll often pull out some gunk, particularly on a well-used knife, because you'll get material wearing off the pivot as well as off of the blade itself. So now we're going to put this guy back together. I might still make it. 7 minutes and 6 seconds. I smell the potatoes out of the fridge, out of the oven, but I can still do this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this this plastic washer, oh, the drama, down on top of the carbon fiber, and I'm just putting a little tiny dab of your nano oil, which is, this is the 10 weight. Come on now, drop it on there. Would I really have two different washer sizes? No, they're just a tight fit. Okay. So I put some nano oil down there, and now I'm going to put a little bit on the other side of the washer. So the holes in the washers over here, it could be a cost-saving measure, but more likely, actually Chris Reeve Knives does that, and that helps to distribute the grease or the oil or whatever on both sides of the washers evenly, allows it to kind of communicate a little bit more to either side, which is good. I'm always a big fan of communication. It helps smooth so many things, not just knives. All right. This must just be a fixturing hole up here, which is fine. Yeah, because there's no reason for that hole to be there otherwise. They just use that to hold the blade in place. No problem. Then I'm going to go ahead and fill up the detent ball hole here. And put a little bit of lubrication onto the detent ball track. And that'll just make sure that the detent ball goes smoothly across the blade of the knife. That's one of the things you can do. It's very, very easy to smooth up a frame lock or a liner lock. Is just make sure that the detent path is well lubricated. There we go. Putting that there. One thing I dislike about the way this knife is put together is I do prefer when the pivot goes in from the clip side, from the non-presentation side. That way you can stack everything up evenly, because now you're kind of forced to align these two sides separately. Oh, okay. You can see here that this is actually a D-shaped pivot. See? And there's a D-shaped hole, and I've got that D shape in the wrong direction, so I just got to rotate that around a little bit here. Oh, hold that in place. There we go. Should be good to go. And it's always easier to reassemble a knife from the lock bar side up, basically, to build the sandwich that way. But, you know, it works. So what I had to do to pop it in there was to lift up on the lock bar just a little bit, and that released enough tension that everything could kind of fall together in the proper manner. I'm going to go ahead and first I'm going to put in the pivot screw. I'm going to use a little bit of blue Loctite. This is Loctite number 242. And wrong screw. I was laying in a puddle of booze. It'll evaporate, but just to make sure, I'm going to clean this off. Here we go. Alrighty. Put some Loctite on there. It's not a free spinning pivot, so I'm not super concerned that there's some fair amount on there. Come on now. Just finger tighten it in at first. Something ain't quite right here. No, it's just rough threading. I guess it's a cheap knife. What do you want? Well, it's an inexpensive knife. Cheap is a value judgment. Okay, so I've got that just roughly in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop in these handle screws. I'm going to, again, use a little bit of Loctite here. Probably not necessary. Probably not a bad idea. We may have to play with those screws to get the centering right. Again, on relatively inexpensive knives, that's a game you sometimes have to play, but nonetheless. You're going to think I'm a little bit crazy here. Well, let's make sure everything, yeah, the centering's not quite there where I need it to be. That's okay. I'm actually going to back these guys out here and Loctite them because I did take them out and break the white Loctite that's on there normally. So if it requires Loctite, I want to make sure it's on there. It's probably not something I'd have done for my own. I probably would have. Who am I kidding? I'm retentive enough. But anyways, with a viewer knife, I'm always going to be much more retentive about it because, you know, I want to make sure they're getting it back in as good a shape as they can possibly have it. Even on something relatively inexpensive. You know, everything can be somebody's gem. Okay, right now the pivot is way too loose and the centering is screwed. So let's tighten some things up here. I'm going to tighten at a 90-degree, at the pivot at a 90-degree angle. Can't hurt, might help. Okay, we are now way too tight, but the blade is centered. So hopefully there's a happy medium here. No blade play. Blade is centered. I feel like I want to back it off just a little bit more here. Centering is still good. Action is pretty good. These are some beefy thumb studs, by the way. Holy crap. There we go. Alrighty. So, perfect. Looks like the knife is back together. And it's 13:39. Dinner's not ready yet. Boo, yeah, here we go. That's why they call me a pro. No one calls me a pro. But that's why I don't tell anyone. I hope this has been interesting to you, that this helps you disassemble your Real Steel H6-S1. And keep an eye out for the review coming up shortly. Yeah, we're good to go. Have a good one. Bye now.